Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If you're looking for easy English listening practice, you're in the right place. Have you ever walked into a room, just completely forgotten why you went there, and found yourself asking the empty space, like, okay, why am I here?
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
Right. Or maybe you're driving in terrible traffic,
Yeah.
just gripping the steering wheel, and you actually hear yourself mutter, I should definitely leave earlier tomorrow.
Yeah, you just stand there in the middle of the kitchen, or you sit alone in your car, literally talking to the air.
Exactly. The space is completely empty, and obviously nobody's going to answer you.
No, of course not.
But somehow, just asking the question out loud actually helps you remember. Or, it helps you calm down.
It really does. It is an incredibly common human behavior,
Mm.
but when you stop to think about it, well, it is also quite mysterious.
It is. Why do we require spoken words to process something our brain already knows?
That is the big question.
So, today we have gathered a really fascinating stack of sources, including research papers on cognitive psychology, behavioral studies, and some neurological research, too.
Which is great.
Yeah, so our mission for this deep dive is to explore the underlying science of why we talk to ourselves, how this habit physically changes our thought process, and, well, why it is actually a crucial tool for our minds.
I think that is a perfect starting point, because to really understand this, we first have to understand that the human mind, it rarely sits in complete silence.
Right, there's always something going on.
Exactly. There's always this background hum of activity. Even when you are just resting on the sofa, seemingly doing nothing, thoughts are constantly moving.
Like people walking through a city at night, just constant movement in the background.
Yes, that is a great way to put it.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that background hum a bit. Our sources point out that our working memory capacity, which is basically the brain's short-term workspace, is actually quite limited.
Limited, yeah.
We can only hold a few pieces of information in our active mind at one time.
And those few pieces of information, they are not neatly organized.
No, definitely not.
They are often competing for your attention simultaneously. You are thinking about an email you need to send, what to make for dinner, and, a weird noise your car is making.
All at the same time.
All at once. When all of those thoughts stay trapped inside your internal mind, they feel heavy. They overlap.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
The scientific term for dealing with this is called cognitive offloading.
Cognitive offloading. Okay, so essentially using something outside of your brain to help your brain do its job.
Precisely. Usually we offload by writing a list on a piece of paper or setting a reminder on our phone.
Right, external tools.
But speaking out loud is the most immediate form of cognitive offloading. You are taking an abstract electrical signal in your brain and turning it into a physical sound wave in the real world.
Oh, that is so interesting. And the cognitive psychology papers we reviewed, they use this fantastic analogy for this process.
The desk analogy.
Yeah. They compare your internal thoughts to a messy pile of papers on a desk. They are all mixed up, overlapping, and entirely disorganized.
Sounds like my actual desk.
Right. You know all the information is in the pile somewhere, but you just cannot make sense of it all at once.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it.
Mm-hmm.
When you speak those thoughts out loud, it is like taking that messy pile of papers and placing them neatly, one by one, in a straight line on the desk.
The information on the papers has not changed at all. You haven't added any new facts,
No.
but the arrangement is completely different.
The arrangement changes everything because spoken language requires a simple sequence.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, you cannot speak 3 sentences at the exact same time. Your mouth physically forces your brain to pick one thought, finish it, and then move to the next. It imposes strict order on the chaos.
Oh, wow. That makes so much sense. That explains why we mutter to ourselves when doing practical tasks. Like, if I'm trying to fix my computer, I will literally walk through the steps aloud. I will say, first I'll check the cable, then I'll restart the system.
Right, you are pacing yourself.
Yeah, I am not trying to communicate with anyone. I am using my voice to create a temporary guide for my own actions, so I can figure out the problem.
And there's a fascinating physical mechanism behind this called the auditory feedback loop.
The auditory feedback loop.
Yes. When you think silently, you are only using certain internal networks. But when you speak, you use the motor cortex to move your mouth and vocal cords.
So there is physical movement involved.
Right. And then your own ears hear the words, which activates the auditory processing centers of your brain.
Okay, so by speaking, you are forcing the brain to process the exact same idea through 3 different pathways instead of just one.
Yes.
You think it, you physically produce it, and you hear it.
By engaging all those different neural pathways, the thought becomes concrete. It bypasses the limits of your working memory. Your brain essentially says, ah, I heard that instruction clearly. Now I know what to do next.
It essentially turns us into our own everyday assistant.
Exactly.
We walk around the house saying, check the kitchen first, then check the jacket pocket to carefully organize our attention.
We literally direct ourselves.
So, okay, that explains how speaking aloud helps us sequence physical tasks in the present moment. But let's look at the abstract stuff.
The future stuff, yeah.
Yeah, how does this mechanism help us with things that haven't even happened yet?
Well, you are referring to rehearsing the future.
Hmm.
And this is probably the most complex form of self-talk.
Okay.
We use it to prepare for upcoming social interactions. Imagine you have a difficult conversation coming up with a friend or an important job interview.
Oh, the shower argument.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. People will stand in the shower or walk down the street actively holding a conversation with an imaginary version of that person.
See, I have a major problem with this idea, though.
Oh, why is that?
Well, I understand sequencing a physical task like finding keys, but rehearsing a conversation that hasn't happened yet seems completely counterproductive to me.
How so?
The actual person never, ever follows the script you write for them in your head.
That's very true.
The real conversation never goes the way you practiced, so aren't we just stressing ourselves out twice? Like once in the shower and once in reality?
That is a very fair critique. If the goal was to predict the exact words of the future, it would be a terrible strategy.
Right.
But the research indicates the goal is not prediction. The goal is emotional regulation.
Emotional regulation, meaning we are trying to manage how we feel rather than trying to guess what the other person will say.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The human brain perceives uncertainty as a threat. An unknown future event triggers your nervous system, which causes anxiety.
Makes sense.
But when you visit that future situation in your mind and you hear yourself speaking the words aloud, your brain experiences a mild version of that stress.
So you are basically giving yourself a small, safe dose of the anxiety.
You trigger the stress response in a controlled environment. By doing this repeatedly, you build up emotional tolerance.
Ah, I see.
Even if the actual event unfolds completely differently, your nervous system feels a sense of familiarity with the emotional temperature of the situation.
Because you've already been there emotionally.
Exactly. The unknown becomes slightly more known, and you are less likely to panic when the real conversation starts.
That reframes it completely. We aren't writing a script. We are emotionally preparing the nervous system.
That's right.
But, sometimes this rehearsal doesn't sound like preparation at all. It sounds like an intense debate.
Oh, for sure.
One voice says, you need to quit this job, and another voice immediately argues, you can't afford to quit, you need the money.
Yeah.
It can feel like multiple versions of ourselves sitting around a table having a serious, sometimes aggressive meeting.
It really does feel like different people arguing. But this brings us to another critical psychological concept, executive functioning.
Okay, executive functioning.
Human decisions are rarely simple. We usually have competing desires and conflicting needs. Part of you craves security, and part of you craves freedom.
And if we just keep those conflicting feelings silently spinning inside, they remain tangled together. It just feels like a heavy block of stress.
Exactly. By giving each side a distinct voice in a self-talk debate, you are using executive functioning to separate those tangled emotions.
You break them apart.
When you verbalize an option, you create psychological distance from it. Instead of just feeling the anxiety, you can look at the two arguments objectively, almost as if a friend were presenting them to you.
So you can sort things out by hearing the arguments externally.
Yes.
I think people often discover what they truly believe only after they hear themselves say it out loud.
Oh, definitely.
You might argue for staying at the job, hear the words, and suddenly realize your voice sounds completely miserable. Like the sound of your own voice reveals your true feelings.
That is the power of making the internal external. You work through the confusion by giving it a physical presence in the air.
That is fascinating. So speaking out loud is a powerful tool for control when we are awake, active, and trying to solve a problem.
Yes.
But let's look at the other side of the coin. What happens when we let go of that active control? Like when we are lying in bed trying to fall asleep in the dark?
Yes. This is where we enter the territory of mind wandering, which can sometimes feel like a trap.
I think everyone knows this exact feeling. The room is completely dark. Everything is perfectly quiet. You are just waiting for sleep.
Just trying to relax.
And suddenly your brain ambushes you with an incredibly awkward memory from 5 years ago.
Right.
Maybe a terrible joke you made at a party or some strange comment during a meeting.
And out of nowhere, you are muttering to yourself in the dark. You say, why did I do that? Or I should have just stayed quiet.
Yes, the debate begins all over again over an event that ended years ago. It is so frustrating. Why does our brain do this? Why do these highly embarrassing memories wait for the nighttime to strike?
It comes down to a neurological system called the default mode network.
Default mode network.
Yes. During the day, your brain's active networks are highly engaged. You are answering emails, navigating traffic, talking to colleagues.
Z stuff.
Exactly. Your attention is constantly consumed by external stimuli. The brain is busy solving immediate problems.
But at night, all of those external distractions disappear. The immediate problems are gone.
Right. And when active processing stops, the brain doesn't just shut off. It shifts into the default mode network.
Yeah.
Think of it like a computer's background maintenance program. Without external tasks to focus on, the brain turns its attention inward. It starts sorting through the archives, reviewing past experiences to update your internal models of the world.
So it is essentially doing background processing, but why does it prioritize the embarrassing stuff? Why doesn't it review the time I gave a really great presentation?
That is a great question. From an evolutionary perspective, successes are nice, but mistakes are dangerous.
Oh.
The brain is a survival machine. It highlights social errors, awkward moments, and mistakes because it wants to analyze them and ensure you never repeat them.
So it brings up that awkward part. The brain is essentially bored, looks for an unresolved emotional error, and forces you to process it.
Yeah.
And because the quiet of the room is so absolute, those thoughts naturally spill over into spoken words. We literally try to rewrite the past out loud.
During the day, the noise of life keeps those memories hidden. But in the quiet, that default mode network takes over and the internal voice becomes very loud.
You know, even though those nighttime memories can be extremely annoying, our sources suggest there is actually something deeply comforting about the privacy of self-talk.
Yes, there is.
Let's contrast this internal space with the outside world for a minute. Modern life is completely saturated with public communication.
It is endless. Text messages, video calls, professional emails, group chats, social media comments.
It never stops. And the defining feature of all that public communication is that it requires performance.
Yes, exactly.
When you speak to others, you are constantly editing yourself. You adjust your tone for your boss. You try to sound supportive for a friend.
You make sure your message is clear and socially acceptable.
Exactly. You are always managing an audience's perception of you.
There is a constant subtle pressure to be perfect, or at the very least a fear of judgment if you say the wrong thing.
But self-talk is the ultimate communication without performance.
Yes.
There is no audience to please. There is absolutely no judgment. When you talk to yourself, the conversation can be totally messy. It can be completely contradictory.
You can literally change your mind halfway through a sentence, and nobody cares.
Right. You don't have to finish your thought if you already understand the point.
In a world where we are constantly curating our image for other people, private conversation offers a profound psychological relief.
It really does.
It is a completely safe space where the pressure to perform drops to zero.
It is a sanctuary, and I love thinking about the physical environments where this naturally happens. There is a specific atmosphere to these solitary moments.
Picture an empty kitchen late at night with only the sound of the refrigerator humming.
Or a quiet hotel room when you are traveling alone for work.
Or a long walk through familiar empty streets in the evening. In these spaces, the separation from the busy outside world is physical.
And because the environment is safe and empty, your own mind becomes easier to hear. Thoughts that would normally be drowned out by daily noise suddenly become noticeable.
It is important to note, however, that the behavioral studies point out massive individual differences in how people experience this sanctuary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there is no universal standard.
Right. I've heard some people have a constant running stream of words in their head, like a never-ending internal monologue narrating their entire life.
Yes, but other people don't experience words at all. They describe their internal world as purely visual or based on abstract feelings and concepts.
That is so hard for me to imagine.
And the physical act of speaking aloud varies wildly, too. Some people regularly narrate their morning routine while making coffee. Others rarely make a single sound when alone.
Wow.
For some, a busy internal voice is incredibly calming, providing companionship. For others, particularly during periods of anxiety, that same busy voice can feel exhausting and overwhelming.
So it is a remarkably flexible tool.
Extremely.
And because human life is so complicated, a flexible tool is exactly what we need to survive. It adapts to whatever psychological requirement you have in that specific solitary moment.
Sometimes you need an assistant to help you find your keys.
Sometimes you need a debate partner to help you make a difficult choice.
And sometimes you just need a listener who will let you vent without offering unsolicited advice.
It defies a single, simple definition because it serves so many different purposes, from basic cognitive offloading to complex emotional regulation. As we bring all these threads together, I am struck by how strange society often considers this habit. We often joke that talking to yourself is the first sign of madness.
We do say that.
But maybe it only feels strange because we have a very narrow definition of what communication is. We have been taught that a conversation must involve another physical person.
We view language strictly as a bridge between two different minds, a way to cross the gap between you and society.
But our sources remind us that the vast majority of human life actually happens entirely internally. Our biggest decisions, our deepest worries, our fondest memories, and our most complex emotional struggles.
They all happen inside the private theater of our own minds.
Yeah. When you look at the sheer volume of processing happening internally, it is not surprising at all that language, our most powerful tool for organizing information, eventually joins us in that internal space.
The voice we learn to use to navigate the outside world eventually becomes the tool we use to navigate ourselves.
It's beautiful, really. But, before we wrap up, there is a fascinating modern angle here that builds on everything we just discussed. A new, kind of provocative question for the digital age.
Oh, where are we going with this?
Well, we just spent all this time talking about how self-talk is our ultimate private sanctuary, a place free from judgment and performance.
Right.
But look at the rise of artificial intelligence companions and chatbots. Millions of people are starting to talk to AI to sort through their daily problems, debate decisions, and process their feelings.
Oh, wow. They are externalizing their self-talk to a machine.
Exactly. If we start replacing our messy, private internal dialogue with a conversation with a highly logical, engineered AI, what happens to that sanctuary?
That's a good question.
Do we lose the ability to sit with our own uncomfortable thoughts? If we constantly outsource our emotional regulation to a machine, how will that change our relationship with ourselves?
That is a profound question. If the voice you use to sort things out is no longer your own, the entire mechanism of self-discovery changes.
It is something we will all likely have to navigate in the coming years.
Absolutely.
But for now, your internal voice remains yours. So the next time you walk into a room, completely forget why you are there and ask the empty room a question. Don't feel strange.
You are just engaging in high-level cognitive offloading.
Exactly. You are just checking in with the most constant companion you will ever have. It might not always have the right answers, but it is always listening. Thanks for spending time with us today. Hopefully this conversation gave you something interesting to think about. Keep listening, keep learning, and we'll see you again soon.